On that sultry summer night in 1928, the railway tracks at Huanggutun glistened coldly in the moonlight. At the moment when the Japanese Guangdong army detonated the dynamite, the blue steel train that Zhang Zuolin was riding on jerked violently like a wounded python. This Northeast king, who made the Japanese prince bow and scrape, and made Puyi even call him Marshal Zhang, could not escape his final doom in the end. But what the Japanese blew up was not just the train. It was also the numerous unpaid debts owed by this old scoundrel marshal. From 1916 to 1928, this old scoundrel had swindled a total of 300 million yen from Japanese banks. Yet he didn't pay back a single yen of principal or interest. Before his death, he still slammed the table and cursed in the marshal's mansion in Fengtian City. The money from those little Japs. Once borrowed, it's borrowed. Why should I pay it back? No one could have imagined that Zhang Zuolin, the warlord who dominated Northeast China, would actually be blown up by a Japanese conspiracy, because he had borrowed money from the Japanese multiple times and never paid it back. And Zhang Zuolin's scoundrel-like behavior had started long ago. In 1916, when Zhang Zuolin became the military governor of Fengtian, he played tricks the first time he borrowed money from the Japanese in a proper way. At that time, Japan was eager to build railways in Northeast China. He patted his chest and promised. Then he turned around and borrowed 20 million yen from the South Manchuria Railway Company. But after getting the money, he laid the railway tracks into a dead-end road. The railway deliberately bypassed the mining areas that Japan wanted. And he also set up countless checkpoints along the line, making it extremely difficult for Japanese trade convoys to move. The Japanese consul general in Fengtian stormed into his place in a rage. Zhang Zuolin, lying on an opium couch in a mandarin jacket, squinted his eyes and puffed out smoke rings. Wasn't the railway built? The money was borrowed, not stolen. What's the rush? In 1920, to maintain military expenditures, Zhang Zuolin borrowed 1 billion yen from the Japanese, promising to pay back 2 billion yen including principal and interest 1 year, some say 1 month later, and using Fengtian City as collateral. The Japanese asked Zhang Zuolin to sign the loan agreement. Zhang Zuolin cheerfully wrote the character reviewed on the loan agreement, without writing his name or affixing his seal. He said he was illiterate and couldn't write. The Japanese thought they had hit the jackpot, but when they went to ask for the money with the agreement, he acted dumb. "Oh, I've reviewed it. I know." This enraged the Japanese ambassador to China, Yashikichi Yoshizawa, who waited in the living room for 3 days. Finally, Zhang Zuolin shouted from upstairs, "No money, just my life. Do whatever you want." In 1921, when he wanted to build the Fengtian arsenal, he borrowed another 50 million yen from the Japanese Bank for International Cooperation. Then he turned around and bought equipment from Germany, hired Austrian engineers, and turned the arsenal into the largest weapons depot in Asia, producing 60,000 rifles and 150,000 shells annually. When the Japanese wanted to visit, he sent soldiers with loaded guns to guard the gate. This is a military restricted area. Even the emperor can't enter. What was even more ridiculous was in 1925, to fight Feng Yuxiang's National Revolutionary Army, he borrowed 100 million yen from the Japanese Industrial Bank, with the collateral being non-existent, wasteland in Fengtian province. This made the Japanese ambassador slam the table at a cabinet meeting in Tokyo. Zhang Zuolin is a fraud. But this old scoundrel had a principle. He didn't owe a single cent to the Chinese. His sworn brother Feng Delin competed with him for the position of military governor of Fengtian, and was imprisoned by Duan Chirue. Zhang Zuolin went to Beijing with a suitcase full of gold bars to bail him out. Smiling, he said, "Big brother, you gave me half a pancake back then. Now I'm giving you a city." When his soldiers owed money to the common people, he personally led his guard detachment to repay the debts, whipping them while cursing. We're soldiers from Northeast China, not robbers. Even the imperially bestowed gold bars secretly sent by Puyi, he returned them untouched, with a note attached. "If your majesty needs money, just tell me. We have plenty in Northeast China. No need to be sneaky." The Japanese hated him to the core, but had to rely on him. In 1916, when the Japanese Prince Siren passed through Fengtian, Zhang Zuolin welcomed and saw him off at Fengtian Station. According to protocol, the prince should have given a gaze of respect to the military governor. But Zhang Zuolin, dressed in the uniform of a grand marshal, stood motionless. Prince Siren had to bow and shake hands with him. Afterwards, he angrily told his entourage, "This warlord with a bandit background is even harder to deal with than the emperor." But then, Japan had to meekly lend him another 80 million yen. Soybeans, coal, and iron ore in Northeast China were all in Zhang Zuolin's hands. If they didn't lend him money, Japanese factories would have to shut down. The people around him were also all extraordinary. Wang Yongjiang, when he was the finance director, argued with him every day, holding the account books and crying, "Marshal, if you keep borrowing like this, the Northeast's finances will collapse." Zhang Zuolin would snatch the account books and tear them up. Smiling, he said, "Mr. Scholar Wang, what do you know? We might as well borrow the money from those little Japs. When our army is strong and well-equipped, how dare they ask for it back?" Huanggutun helped him manage the army. Every time he went to negotiate a loan, he would follow, and then curse after coming back. The Japanese interpreters were almost in tears. The most interesting was his brother Zhang Jingwei, who later became a traitor. But back then, he was the most enthusiastic. When it came to borrowing money with Zhang Zuolin, volunteering to be his credit guarantor every time. In the spring of 1928, the Northern Expeditionary Army reached Shandong. Zhang Zuolin knew he couldn't hold Beijing, and decided to retreat to Northeast China. The Japanese took the opportunity to press for debt repayment, saying that if he agreed to transfer the mining rights in Jilin, all the previous debts would be written off. Zhang Zuolin slammed the table on the special train and cursed, "I've been a big shot in Northeast China for 30 years. I've never heard of giving up land to repay debts." That's how the explosion at Huanggutun happened. On his deathbed, he told Zhang Xueliang, "Don't pay back the money owed to those little devils." Later, when Zhang Xueliang switched allegiance to the nationalist government, the Japanese took those IOUs to the Nanjing government. Chiang Kai-shek took a look and said, "These were all personal loans by Zhang Zuolin, and had nothing to do with the nationalist government. This unpaid debt was completely written off." Some people have calculated, based on the exchange rate at that time, the money he borrowed could buy 3,000 airplanes, enough to equip 3 army groups. But Zhang Zuolin used this money to turn Northeast China into the toughest fortress in Asia, with its own arsenal, its own bank, its own railway network, and even the prototype of an aircraft carrier. Now, in the marshal's mansion of the Zhang family in Shenyang, the Tiger Hall where Zhang Zuolin used to work is still preserved. There's a brass abacus on the table. It's said that he often laughed while calculating. The debts of those little Japs should be calculated using our Northeast's method. Borrow 1 yuan, pay them back with a fart. This old scoundrel's life was like the black soil of Northeast China, rough on the surface, but with the fiercest temperament. He wasn't a hero, nor a saint, just a rough-and-tumble man who protected Northeast China with sheer brute force in troubled times. It's just that his way of protecting was a bit special.